So, when you think of Spain, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Is it a massive empire, conquistadors, a global power that completely reshaped the world? Well, you're not wrong. That's a huge piece of the puzzle. But here's the thing, it's not where the story starts. Spain's history is just this masterclass in contradiction. It's the story of a nation that was first defined by being ruled, only to become one of the world's greatest rulers itself. This source we're digging into for this explainer puts it, well, just beautifully. It describes Spain as a land marred by the scars of its past. And look, that's not just some fancy poetic phrase. It's actually the key to understanding the deep and, let's be honest, often conflicting forces that have shaped this nation's identity for thousands of years. These scars, they really do tell a story. And that really gets us to the core question, right? The central paradox of it all. How in the world does a nation, a people, go from being the one that's ruled to the one doing the ruling on a global scale? It's a question that really cuts to the very heart of the Spanish story. Okay, so to really get a grip on the empire, we've got to rewind. We have to look at what came before. Because for hundreds and hundreds of years, the story of this land, the Iberian Peninsula, wasn't about conquering. It was about being conquered. There's this really powerful phrase the source uses for this time, under the yoke. And what does that mean? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It means living in a state of subjugation, being controlled by a foreign power. Basically, you're not free. Your entire destiny is in the hands of outsiders. And for a huge chunk of its early history, that was the reality. And listen, this wasn't just some brief phase. The source literally says there were so many foreign rulers that even they began to lose count. I mean, think about that. You've got the original Iberians and Celts, then bam, the Roman Empire shows up. Then the Visigoths, then the Moors. The land was just constantly changing hands. This wasn't just a little bit of foreign influence. This was the defining experience of the place for centuries. So, here's the twist. The ultimate plot twist, really. How does a people so used to being under the yoke suddenly find the strength not just to shake it off, but to then turn around and put that same yoke on millions of other people all over the globe? It's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. And that brings us to part 2 of the story. This is the chapter most of us are probably more familiar with, the incredible transformation from the ruled to the ruler, the forging of an empire that literally redrew the map of the world. And this comparison just lays it out so clearly, doesn't it? The sheer scale of this change is just wow. In one corner, you've got centuries of being a territory controlled by others, and in the other, a world-conquering powerhouse, a force that changed everything. It's like looking at 2 totally different identities, but they're both part of the exact same national story. And the impact? I mean, it was absolutely staggering. Our source puts a spotlight on this, saying the Spanish Empire dramatically changed the course of Mesoamerican history. And let's be clear, we're not talking about a small ripple here. This was a history-altering tidal wave, one whose effects we can still see and feel so deeply today. But just when you think you've got the pattern down, right? Ruled to ruler, simple enough. But nope, Spain throws us another curveball. You've got this major European power, a nation with this long history of fighting and empire building, and it just decides to sit on the sidelines for the biggest wars of the 20th century. Yep, 2 of them, the big ones. While the rest of Europe was just tearing itself apart, Spain stayed officially neutral in both World War I and World War II. Now, a big reason for this was its own internal chaos, especially the absolutely devastating Spanish Civil War right before World War II. I mean, the country was just shattered. It was in no shape to jump into another huge war. But still, for a nation so defined by conquest, stepping back like that is, well, it's another one of those fascinating paradoxes. Okay, so let's try to wrap our heads around all this. What do you do with a history that's just so full of extremes? Well, it all circles right back to where we started. That idea of a nation shaped, even defined, by the deep scars of its past. And this is really the core of the Spanish paradox, isn't it? It's a land that had so many foreign rulers, it's hard to keep track, but then it turns around and builds one of the biggest empires the world has ever seen. It's an imperial giant that just sits out the world wars. Every single one of these points is a contradiction, and when you put them all together, you get this incredibly complex national identity, one that's, just like our source says, forever marked by its own history. So that leaves us with one last thing to chew on. When you look at the grand sweep of history, what truly defines a nation? Is it all those centuries spent being ruled by others which forges this, I don't know, this spirit of survival? Or is it that explosive moment when it becomes an empire itself and starts shaping the rest of the world? The story of Spain kind of suggests that the real answer isn't one or the other. It's maybe a constant, fascinating tug of war between the two.